And yes to us. Why?
Very good question. Nice place to start. For the last 9 years, I have been the subject of a vicious, relentless trial by media in India, who, as you have rightly pointed out, have created so many narratives, negative narratives about me, that I have become a lightning rod of public anger, being abused, called names. And that was very unfortunate, both professionally and personally. So rather than try and take on this huge Indian media machine, I just prefer to keep quiet. Now, times have changed. And I can't help but recalling that when President Trump was inaugurated, in the first press briefing by the White House press secretary, she said that a few seats were now going to be reserved for the very first time for people who represented new media or social media. I didn't even know that a podcast existed, let alone understanding what a podcast really meant, until you told me and explained it to me in a manner that I got quite excited about, because here is my opportunity to not only answer your questions, but to say things that I truly feel would never, ever have been truthfully reported by the legacy media, particularly in India. That's why I'm here.
Why do you think nobody cared about hearing you then?
In India, it's strange, but public opinion is very quickly formed and influenced by the media. More importantly, by sensationalism. I still remember the anchor of one media channel in 2016 shouting and screaming on the television, saying, Vijay Mallya, I want to see you in jail clothes. I want to see you eat jail food, with an image of me in, in jail attire. What for? I always wondered what for. Subsequently, CHOR, पैसा लूट के भाग गया. क्या पैसा? क्या loot? Nobody bothered to step back and think. But it was very easy to fling false accusations day after day and get away with it. One of the reasons I agreed to sit with you today is also because it is only very recently that finally the government of India, Ministry of Finance, has published a report, their annual report, in which they have acknowledged 14,100 crores recovered from me. Of course, this was following the finance minister's statement in Parliament. And the legacy media can't argue with that anymore. They can't put any spin on it anymore. The Debt Recovery Tribunal gave a judgment debt of 4,999 crores borrowed by Kingfisher Airlines, not by Vijay Mallya. Borrowed by Kingfisher Airlines, of which Vijay Mallya was one of the guarantors. So, what was the DRT judgment debt? 4,999 crores plus 1,203 crores unapplied interest. Okay, which means notional interest that the banks had not even booked. Forget that. The total of the unapplied interest and the principal was 6,203 crores. Okay? And I was a guarantor. The government has recovered 14,100 crores from me. Right? Now, if I had done chori, if I had duped the banks, where does this all add up? Till very recently, there was absolutely no official figure of recovery, right? So everybody, the legacy media in particular, wrote whatever they wanted, right? And I was in no position to contradict. Today, after the government of India has acknowledged the recovery of 14,100 crores, I think it's my turn to ask them what they have to say about it.
Because you say that a lot of things about you are false narrative. Let's go down to from your childhood. We speak from the beginning, and you tell me everything that people have been said, people think is wrong.
Yeah.
And I'll try to present the facts and the narratives which I have heard and which I have gathered through my research.
All right.
And if you're okay with counter somewhere, I'll counter you as well.
No, please feel free to counter me.
Perfect.
If there's something that you feel is debatable or you want to make a counterpoint, I'm ready for it.
Perfect. Because I feel that's my little responsibility out there to hear the right side and the wrong side both, and let then people think about it and let them make the right call.
That's fair.
Perfect. So before even I ask you about childhood, do you regret anything?
I regret one thing, which is that after all my hard work, all the value that I created in so many multiple ways, that effectively the government of India and of course the media made me a zero from a hero. And that's a fact of life that I have had to stomach and live with. Now, whether that was justified or not is something that I'm sure will be encompassed in your own questions.
Zero from a hero. Let's
Correct.
talk about building of a hero first, and we'll come down to zero again. So before the billionaire Vijay Mallya, before the controversies, before all of this flamboyance and scandals and things that people talk about, who was Vijay Mallya as a child? Where were you born? What did you do? How was your childhood? Tell me about it.
Born in Calcutta, moved to our hometown Bangalore, went back to Calcutta, did my schooling there, did my college education there in Calcutta. And my upbringing under my father was a very normal, I would say strict upbringing.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me an incident, strict childhood.
Two things. When I was still in school, class 9 at La Martiniere in Calcutta, my marks were not very good in class. I was a mid-ranker, only because I took a lot of interest in sport and extracurricular activities. But I didn't concentrate fully on studies and my mark sheets. And he told me, and I think most people know it, he was exceptionally intelligent, was a product of the Doon School, I think topped his class. So he expected me to also top my class. Nevertheless, he said something to me which I think I remember till today.
What?
Two things made a profound impact. One, if you're not good enough, you are not going to step into my shoes. And the second thing he said, do you realize that while I say step into my shoes, there may not be any shoes at all, because the government and its then socialist policies may have taken everything away from us, and the only thing I can leave to you is your education. So take it seriously. I think I repaid some amount of faith because for my last 3 years in school, 9, 10, 11, I think I came within the top 3 in class, and he was quite happy about that.
So weren't you a little spoilt as child?
Spoiled? Oh my God, I was anything but spoiled.
Really?
Yeah.
You had all the fancy toys, you had all the things that you used
Absolutely
to.
no fancy toys at all. That's completely false narrative. I, after I passed out of school, and when I went to St. Xavier's College to study BCom, my father was very clear. You go to college at 6 o'clock in the morning, and when you finish at 10:30, you go and work a full day at the office as a management trainee. I was put on a stipend of 400 rupees a month, and that 400 rupees never increased right the way my time through college. So that's all I got, 400 rupees a month, and was working in those days, Phipson and Company Limited, Old Courthouse Street in Calcutta, every day after college.
Aren't there stories that you used to go to college in a very fancy car and you removed the silencer just to show the noise of your car, the loudness of your car, and you would always a show off, weren't you?
I was no show off at all, and the fancy car that I have was a second-hand Standard Herald.
So where are these stories coming from?
I don't know, it's people's narratives, people's perceptions. That's why it's important to correct those perceptions. You know, talking about noise, even a fatfatia in Delhi makes a hell of a lot of noise. You don't have to drive a fancy car to make a noise down the street.
So you are telling me that all these stories of you having fancy toys, remote control cars, and then fancy cars with loud noises, all of this is false.
Well, I may have tampered with the silencer of my car
Okay.
because I was always into kind of fast cars, loved motor racing and stuff like that. But, you know, I mean, it still remained a Standard Herald.
But why did you do that? Like just to show off like the noise and everything?
Look, if you can modify the silencer of a car, like you can modify the top end of a car's engine to make it go a little quicker. I mean, that's the basics of motorsport.
But how were you as a child, personality wise? Were you confident? Were you a little arrogant?
You know, this is all a question of perception. Arrogant is also your understanding of arrogance, my understanding of arrogance. But I'll tell you one thing. I was always self-confident. And whenever I was invited to give talks at various universities and educational establishments, I always told the youngsters that when they start off life, they must be self-confidence, because it is only self-confidence that will bring out the best in you. And I still believe that till today. And because I started young, I am passionate about youth empowerment.
But this would have not been the case always. As a kid, we all have like a lot of insecurities. It's not always confidence. What was your biggest insecurity when you were growing up?
I don't. Yeah, probably the biggest insecurity was when the examination results were due and what my dad would have to say about it. But no, beyond that, my life is pretty plain and simple. Great bunch of school friends, great bunch of college buddies in Calcutta, not the glitzy lights of Bombay. And yeah, so it was pretty normal, but nothing fancy. But I had a very strict set of supervisors at work who were clearly instructed by my father to be tough with me, to make sure, I worked my butt off. And I'm none the happier for it. That's what made me.
But did you ever get to a position or in a thinking as a child that one day I'll be powerful, one day I'll be very rich?
No, absolutely not. I mean, how could I be so presumptuous? Here I had a dad who was hands-on, working 24/7, young, and who told me that if I didn't measure up, I'd have no place in the business. So I couldn't be presumptive, could I?
But your father was a wealthy man. In those times, there were only few wealthy people. So you would presume this, right? Like, I will have all this wealth inherited. I'll be maybe bigger than my father, or maybe just have all of these things.
I didn't have any such aspirations in those days, and wealth was something that was very relative. And my father certainly was a very frugal spender. So, irrespective of how much wealth he had, he certainly wasn't a spendthrift.
You said when you used to go to work, your father put strict supervisors. Right? What would those strict supervisors made you do? What?
Well, first of all, make sure that I came to the office on time, straight after college. It wasn't as if I'd sort of roll up whenever I wanted to.
Okay.
The second, I was given a clear set of tasks. I was a salesman. I had to go and visit the shops in the market. I had to visit distributors. I had to spend time with the accounts department to understand accounting, corporate accounting. And marketing, sit with the ad agencies and stuff like that. So it was a comprehensive training program, but with no forgiveness in any sense. I had to work a full day. I couldn't sort of get up and go or come when I liked, which was fine. I mean, looking back, it was a great grounding.
What happened next? So you were in Xavier's, you started going to work, and then you went to States.
Yeah, my dad sent me off to the States to work for American Hearst.
Okay.
American Hearst, as it was then known, became then Aventis. And now the pharmaceutical company, the global company, is called Sanofi. So yeah, I was sent there, worked there once again as a management trainee. I then was brought to England to work in Jensen and Nicholson. I was a paint foreman in the paint factory. It used to be mixing paint at night. And yeah, I mean, slowly I understood what my father's methods were.
What was his method?
Which is basically a strict training regimen. And I did pretty well because I can tell you, he expressed his appreciation for my work. I got a pretty good report card from America. He said he was proud of me. I did well here in England, mixing paint. And when I went back to India, his health was becoming indifferent. Okay. Even though at that time he was only 57 years old. His health was becoming indifferent. He had a history of heart disease. So he sort of got me to work for him in the core business. And then of course the story of Kingfisher, the story of McDowell's #1, Bagpiper, and all these brands that subsequently became very well known began then.
How was your relationship with your father?
The relationship with my father was excellent. He was a man of few words. But there's one thing he did which embarrassed me no end. That every time he saw me, he gave me a big kiss on my cheek. Whether it was at an airport or in the office or at home, he'd give me a hug and a big kiss on the cheek. I mean, bless him for that.
Did he ever doubt you that whether you will be able to continue and build his legacy or no?
I think the biggest certificate I got was from my bosses in America. And they gave me a pretty good certificate, a pretty good report. And that finally, I think, gave him the confidence to say, my son is stepping up to my expectations.
What was your first bold step in your father's company?
Oh, Kingfisher. I went to my father and I said, I need 10 lakhs rupees to market Kingfisher beer. And he said, that's a princely sum of money. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to do it? Etc., etc. Because I saw in the archives of United Breweries this label of Kingfisher beer, which had been actually launched in 1857, okay, gathering dust and, with a pretty archaic Kingfisher bird on it, sort of prehistoric version. But I said to myself, the mere word brand Kingfisher is very evocative in so many ways. It could be made into a fun brand. Now, my time in Calcutta, going back to my training days, when I spent time with them, with the marketing department, more importantly, interacted with the people in the advertising agencies. My time in America, where I still remember the two big banks, which is Bank of America and Citibanks. And Citibank said the city never sleeps, and Bank of America came out saying we caught the city napping. That was the level of marketing, advertising, tongue-in-cheek stuff, which caught your attention. And so I became fascinated with marketing. And I came away back to India, started working in the business, and I always said, a brand needs a personality. Of course, I very quickly realized in India, I couldn't replicate what they did in America because for alcohol, India is a media dark environment where the advertising of alcohol is banned. So in a way, I had to think of ways of authoring surrogate advertising, which I did pretty successfully. Not some Mickey Mouse stuff where if you want to advertise an alcoholic brand that you sort of suddenly, produce some music cassettes. And I built a full water business around Kingfisher and a water business of significant enough size that you could justify advertising it. Okay, and therefore you advertise the core brand. So I gave Kingfisher a very colorful personality because that's what evokes you. Like McDowell #1, golden moments, McDowell moments. It's evocative. It's supposed to convey that, if you want to hang out and have a good time with your friend, golden moments, well, it's a McDowell moment. So there were many, many such examples of how I actually gave brands their personalities. And in many ways, I supplemented by becoming the brand ambassador myself.
And all of this was happening when your father was still alive?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You said India was media dark when it comes
Still
to
is.
alcohol, which still is the reality. And there was a point where I think government banned alcohol.
No.
Or what was
Certain states introduced prohibition, such as Andhra Pradesh, unified Andhra Pradesh. Of course, Gujarat has always been dry. But the advertising of alcohol is banned in India and has been banned and still is banned.
When was that? When was this time when you started acquiring a lot of alcohol brands? Because a lot of those brands were scared of the state because the state was getting involved in the alcohol business, or maybe they wanted to ban or prohibit certain things. What was this time where you started acquiring certain alcohol brands and cheap because you and your father was bullish on it?
No. That was in 1977 when Morarji Desai was the Prime Minister of India, and he publicly announced that there should be prohibition all India. Okay, which means that alcohol should be banned across the country. So obviously the value of the stocks and shares of almost all alcoholic beverage companies, whether distilleries or breweries, fell. My father was very clear that prohibition could never succeed in India. And therefore, he bought. And so that's how we became #1 by quite a fair distance. Because all those who panicked and sold out, my father acquired.
But was there something you guys knew which others didn't?
No,
or it was
absolutely.
just pure conviction?
No, it was just pure conviction because we knew that prohibition had not even succeeded in the United States. And plus, if you look at the amount of revenue generation for the state governments through the sale of alcohol, there's no way in the world that prohibition would have succeeded in India.
What happened after your father's death? You were doing this successful stint, you were taking bold steps, you wanted to make alcohol a cool brand. All of this was happening. Everything was going right? What happened then?
Well, I was in the US. I had gone to finalize promotion and export of Black Dog Scotch whiskey when my father sadly passed away at a cocktail party in then Bombay. And he was only 59. Nobody ever expected him to pass so young. I was just past 27. So I took the Air India flight and flew back from New York and performed my father's last rites. And then the fun began because my father surrounded himself with a few stalwarts.
Meaning?
People who he put in positions of great authority who were also very close to him personally. So he had somebody running the Western India businesses, somebody running the Eastern India businesses, somebody running the Southern India businesses. And don't ever forget, in those days, the structure was that United Breweries Limited was the holding company. And the other companies in the group were largely controlled by its largest shareholder, United Breweries, or they were subsidiary companies. And so the inevitable debate started on what next, what role I should have. Of course, people acknowledged that I was in the business. But people, I think, were a little reticent to speak openly about their own aspirations of being the chairman. Then something very funny happened. We had annual general meeting of shareholders that was coming due. And the shareholders in the front line who had seen me with my dad proposed my name. And that's how all other aspirants were silenced, because they couldn't publicly sort of get up and say that they were more qualified, particularly when it was evident I had shareholder support. And there I was installed in what I call the hot seat at a very young age. But fortunately, thanks to my upbringing, my father's insistence on proper training, familiarization with the business, time in America, time working with him, I wasn't raw. I had a fair amount under my belt to be able to address the challenge of the role.
I was reading an article where it said that you didn't trust people who were in control at the time of your father's, when your father was a chairman. So that's why you hired your people and your friends, because you didn't know that if you could actually go to them for the right advice or no.
No, that's completely misleading. It's false. I never hired any of my friends. But let's put it this way, they would have been too young and inexperienced in any case. You know, I mean, as I said, I was barely 28. They would be my contemporaries. So the question of hiring them and putting them in management positions just didn't arise. But I encouraged a lot of professionalism from within. I mean, people who then became the president of the spirits division, of the breweries division, and all the rest of it. I mean, my father's time, the average age of the regional directors of the regional satraps was probably around 60, between 60 and 65. And in 5 years after I reorganized, I mean, the average age was about 40. Okay. And these were all professional managers promoted from within the ranks. I mean, yes, there were a couple of exceptions where I hired people from extremely well known organizations like major consultancy firms, so on and so forth. But beyond that, largely it was all internal promotion.
Give me differences between before. Okay, so when your father was the chairman versus when you were the chairman, give me 3-4 differences. What happened in United Breweries?
It was the entire approach. For instance, mine was a decentralized, accountability led approach.
Okay.
I would have monthly operating review meetings called MORs for each line of business.
Okay.
And that's all I wanted to know about how the businesses were performing on a regular day-to-day basis. I wasn't leaning over the shoulders of the management team and trying to micromanage things. When opportunities came along, then of course we'd had separate discussions. So if you empower people, accountability comes along with it because people are also motivated to demonstrate their own capabilities. Now, my father's style was, as I said, far more hands-on, owner-operated, management style, and he spent a lot of time doing it. I had a lot of free time, as I will tell you as we proceed, because of this decentralization and this whole new management culture that I had
Enough time in your
introduced in the UB group. And this was between, let's say, 1983 and 1986, 87. That is why I was able to then acquire the Berger Paints global business based here in the UK and actually become a non-resident Indian.
in 86.
88.
80. Okay.
Yeah. And I still have a letter from the Reserve Bank of India confirming that from 1988 I would be treated as a non-resident Indian for tax and exchange control purposes. And the reason, and of course that obviously meant that I couldn't spend more than 180 days in India. Well, the luxury of spending 180 days out of India, running this new opportunity in international business,
Paints business.
I was able to do it only because of the decentralized management structure implemented in India. So both the foreign businesses and the Indian businesses ran very well.
Give me differences and similarities between Vittal Mallya and Vijay Mallya.
Well, Vittal Malya's thought 100 times about spending money. Vijay Mallya probably thought twice. Yeah, well, I guess it's age. It's aspiration, it's age, it's different styles and outlook on life.
Was there any difference in terms of public attention as well? You were pretty loud, your personality was...
No. Look, once again, you can think whatever you want to think of me, and so can the whole world. Just because I'm a self-confident guy who is not afraid of public speaking, who doesn't suffer from stage fright, if you want to say that I am arrogant, flamboyant, go ahead and say it. I can't deny it. My father was very shy of public speaking. Totally the opposite. I am a very confident public speaker. I used to debate in school. I used to participate in drama in school. So I can speak.
So you didn't want public recognition. You loved speaking.
No, well, if somebody asked me a question or I was invited to speak, I'd speak. And people would, well, in some cases, tell me I'm talking nonsense. And in most cases, say they like my speak. But I was able to communicate from a platform.
But won't you speak certain things and tweak your speeches in a way that becomes headlines?
I never looked for headlines. I never ever looked for headlines. The headlines were created around me by the media. Let's take the case of flamboyance. Okay, and let's spend a minute on analyzing flamboyance. To me, flamboyance means loving life and appreciating the good things in life. That's what flamboyance is. In a public way.
Okay.
That is what I would say is the meaning of flamboyance. How old was I when my father died? 28. Compare me to other industrialists in India at that time. I was 28. I was chairman of UB Group. Who was chairman of RPG Enterprises? Mr. Ramaprasad Goenka. Who was the chairman of Reliance? Dhirubhai Ambani. Who was the chairman of the Birla Group? Mr. B.K. Birla. I was a contemporary of their children. But I was thrown into the deep end. So I was a group chairman being compared to people who were my father's age. Now, as a youngster, I had the passions of young people.
Like?
I enjoyed a good car. I enjoyed my drinks. I enjoyed parties. I enjoyed music. I enjoyed sport. Not all of my father's contemporaries, who suddenly became my contemporaries in business, lived that way. They were more conservative, more at home, more domestic, consistent with their own age. So suddenly the media decided, this guy, chairman of UB Group, is flamboyant. I was termed flamboyant only because I did what every other youngster aspired to do. At the end of the day, you have to make allowances, age-related allowances, let's put it that way. But it's okay. I have no regrets. I didn't spend anybody else's money. I spent my own money. I lived my life the way I wanted to live my life. If I look back, I've got millions of miles of corporate experience under my belt, starting off at a very young age. And I hope people appreciate the more positive contributions that I have made, rather than the persistently negative narrative that has overtaken and overshadowed effectively a whole career. I don't think I ever used that word flamboyant. It was the media and the narrative they created around me that was flamboyant for their own purposes. Now, I just lived like any other moderately wealthy 28-year-old would live.
No.
Yeah,
You lived
absolutely.
an extraordinary life.
How can it be extraordinary? In what way? Do you know what the exchange controls were in India? Do you know if you could import a Ferrari in India? Today you can. But go back to the 1985, 86, could you import a Ferrari? No way in the world.
So did you or did you not?
You could only buy cars from the State Trading Corporation through an auction process in Delhi.
But you ended up buying all of them.
I could not.
Later you bought it.
Look, I like good cars. I race cars. I've been racing cars since I was a teenager. Okay? I brought a Formula One car into India to race, okay, when my father was still alive. In fact, when I won the race at Sholavaram, okay, near then Madras, now Chennai, I called him from the racetrack and said, I won the race. He was very happy. So it wasn't as if I was trying to do things behind people's back. But, okay, I was fond of motorsports back then.
Okay, so it came from media, but did you enjoy the tag? Of
Where
flamboyant?
did I have the time to enjoy or spend my time and energy denying? I just lived my life, did my work, and I think whoever you may ask, I worked really hard.